We often ask the wrong question. We ask, how do I stop my partner from cheating? As if love were a locked door and fidelity the result of stronger keys, tighter rules, or constant vigilance. But love does not survive under surveillance. Desire does not bloom in captivity. And commitment is not protected by fear, it is protected by meaning. Infidelity is rarely about sex alone, even though that is how it is most often labeled and judged. When people discover betrayal, the focus immediately shifts to physical acts, bodies, and broken rules. But beneath the surface, cheating is more often an emotional solution to an internal conflict. It is a response to something missing, something unspoken, or something slowly eroding inside the relationship. Many people who cheat are not looking for a different partner as much as they are looking for a different version of themselves, one that feels desired, alive, powerful, or understood again. Over time, relationships can quietly replace curiosity with certainty. Partners begin to assume they already know each other, and in doing so, they stop asking questions that once made the connection feel vibrant. Conversations become transactional, focused on logistics rather than longing. Emotional presence fades, not because love disappears, but because attention is redirected toward survival, stress, and routine. When emotional needs go unmet for long periods, resentment and loneliness can coexist even in an apparently stable relationship. Cheating often enters at this emotional crossroads. It offers novelty, not just in the physical sense, but in the psychological one. Being seen with fresh eyes can feel intoxicating. Someone laughs at stories your partner no longer hears. Someone notices your energy, your ideas, your vulnerability. This attention can awaken parts of the self that have gone dormant, and the experience becomes less about sex and more about validation, curiosity, and emotional risk. The affair becomes a mirror reflecting back a version of the self that feels more alive. This does not excuse betrayal, but it explains why moral lectures and strict rules rarely prevent it. If the emotional ecosystem of a relationship is neglected, temptation grows quietly in the background. People do not usually wake up planning to betray their partner, they drift there through disconnection, silence, and unmet needs. The absence of honest conversations about desire, boredom, and emotional hunger creates space for secrecy to grow. Understanding this shifts the question from punishment to prevention. If infidelity is often rooted in emotional deprivation, then strengthening emotional intimacy becomes a powerful protective factor. This means creating a relationship where feelings are welcomed, where dissatisfaction can be spoken without fear, and where both partners remain curious about each other's inner world. When emotional needs are acknowledged and addressed openly, the urge to seek fulfillment elsewhere loses much of its power, because the relationship itself becomes a place of renewal, growth, and emotional nourishment. Many people respond to the fear of betrayal by tightening their grip on the relationship. They check phones, question timelines, monitor social media, and seek constant reassurance. This reaction is understandable, because fear naturally looks for control. But control does not create safety, it creates distance. When a partner feels watched, tested, or managed, trust quietly erodes, and the relationship begins to feel like a system of compliance rather than a space of connection. Surveillance communicates a powerful unspoken message: you are not trusted, and you are not free. Even when nothing inappropriate is happening, this atmosphere breeds defensiveness and secrecy. A partner who feels constantly scrutinized learns to hide not because they are unfaithful, but because they want privacy, dignity, and autonomy. Over time, emotional openness shuts down, not from lack of love, but from fear of being misunderstood or accused. Curiosity, on the other hand, opens doors that control can never unlock. Curiosity sounds like wanting to know your partner's inner world without immediately judging or correcting it. It asks questions not to gather evidence, but to understand experience. When partners feel genuinely listened to, they are far more likely to share their doubts, attractions, frustrations, and vulnerabilities before those feelings turn into secrets. Emotional safety is created when honesty is met with interest rather than punishment. Cheating thrives in environments where people feel trapped, unseen, or emotionally unsafe. When expressing desire or dissatisfaction feels dangerous, those feelings do not disappear, they simply go underground. A partner may avoid difficult conversations to protect the relationship, only to slowly disconnect from it. In contrast, when a relationship welcomes complexity and contradiction, it reduces the need for escape. Freedom within a relationship does not threaten commitment, it strengthens it. True intimacy requires allowing your partner to remain a separate individual, not an extension of your fears or expectations. This means accepting that attraction to others may exist without acting on it, that boredom can arise without meaning the relationship has failed, and that personal growth does not stop at commitment. When these realities are acknowledged openly, they lose their power to destabilize the bond. Ironically, the more room a relationship gives for honesty and autonomy, the less likely betrayal becomes. A partner who feels trusted often rises to that trust. A partner who feels emotionally safe has less reason to seek validation elsewhere. Prevention is not about closing doors from the outside, it is about creating a connection so open, respectful, and alive that secrecy feels unnecessary and disloyal to the bond itself. Desire does not respond well to obligation. It fades when intimacy becomes a duty, a routine, or a performance measured by consistency rather than meaning. Many long-term relationships are built on love, trust, and shared history, yet they quietly neglect the conditions that keep desire alive. People often assume that attraction should naturally persist once commitment is secured, but desire requires intention, presence, and a willingness to keep discovering each other over time. Presence is not simply being physically there, it is the quality of attention we offer. When partners are distracted, emotionally unavailable, or preoccupied with roles and responsibilities, intimacy becomes predictable and mechanical. Desire thrives when someone feels fully seen in the moment, when attention is undivided, and when interactions feel intentional rather than automatic. A look held a second longer, a conversation that goes beyond logistics, or a touch that is not rushed can reignite a sense of aliveness that routine slowly dulls. Mystery also plays a vital role in sustaining attraction. This does not mean secrecy or deception, but rather allowing space for individuality and growth. When partners believe they already know everything about each other, curiosity fades, and with it, desire. Maintaining mystery means staying engaged with who your partner is becoming, not just who they have been. It means allowing change, encouraging personal passions, and resisting the urge to define each other too narrowly. Being truly seen is another powerful engine of desire. When a partner feels appreciated only for what they provide or how they perform a role, attraction weakens. Desire intensifies when someone feels recognized for their inner world, their emotional depth, and their unique essence. This kind of recognition requires emotional attunement, listening without fixing, and responding without judgment. Feeling desired is often less about being wanted physically and more about being wanted as a whole person. When relationships neglect these elements, desire does not disappear, it looks for expression elsewhere. Novelty, attention, and emotional intensity can suddenly feel electrifying when they have been absent at home. This is why desire cannot be sustained through obligation alone. It must be invited, nurtured, and renewed. When presence replaces autopilot, when mystery replaces assumption, and when partners feel deeply seen rather than taken for granted, desire becomes something that lives within the relationship, not something that tempts from outside. Trust is often misunderstood as something that simply exists or disappears after a single mistake, but in reality it is continuously shaped by communication. It is built not through silence or avoidance, but through honest conversations that allow both partners to express what they want, fear, and expect from the relationship. When people avoid difficult topics in the name of harmony, they may preserve peace in the short term, but they weaken trust over time. Honest conversations about longing are especially important. Longing includes emotional closeness, sexual desire, novelty, and even recognition. When these desires remain unspoken, they can turn into quiet dissatisfaction. Many partners fear that voicing longing will hurt the other person or signal ingratitude, yet unexpressed needs often create more distance than the truth ever could. When a partner feels safe to say, "I want more," without being blamed or dismissed, trust deepens because authenticity is welcomed. Boundaries are another essential component of trust. Clear boundaries are not restrictions imposed by control, but agreements formed through mutual respect. Discussing what feels acceptable, what feels risky, and what feels crossing the line allows both partners to move through the world with clarity rather than confusion. Boundaries become meaningful when they are chosen together, not enforced through fear. This shared understanding reduces resentment and removes the ambiguity that often leads to secrecy. Personal freedom is also inseparable from trust. A relationship that allows individuality communicates confidence rather than insecurity. When partners feel free to maintain friendships, interests, and personal growth, they are less likely to experience the relationship as a cage. Freedom does not weaken commitment, it tests it honestly. Choosing each other freely, again and again, creates a deeper form of loyalty than staying out of obligation ever could. Trust grows in environments where vulnerability is met with care. When partners can admit attraction to others, moments of doubt, or emotional distance without being punished, those feelings lose their power to destabilize the bond. Suppression creates secrecy, while openness creates resilience. A relationship that can hold difficult truths becomes stronger, not weaker, because it replaces illusion with intimacy and fear with understanding, allowing trust to evolve as a living, flexible connection rather than a fragile promise waiting to break. Preventing betrayal is often approached from the outside in, focusing on rules, restrictions, and monitoring behavior, but lasting fidelity is built from the inside out. Policing behavior may create temporary compliance, yet it rarely creates genuine commitment. When people feel managed rather than connected, they may follow the rules while emotionally withdrawing. Over time, this emotional distance becomes fertile ground for secrecy, resentment, and disengagement, even if no explicit boundaries are crossed at first. Connection works differently. It addresses the emotional roots that influence behavior long before temptation appears. When partners feel emotionally bonded, valued, and engaged, their choices naturally align with protecting the relationship. They are not faithful because they are afraid of consequences, but because the connection itself matters too much to risk. This kind of fidelity is resilient, because it is motivated by care rather than control. Nurturing connection requires ongoing effort, not grand gestures. It lives in daily moments of attention, responsiveness, and emotional availability. It is built when partners turn toward each other rather than away during stress. It grows when feelings are acknowledged instead of minimized, and when conflicts are handled with curiosity instead of defensiveness. These small interactions accumulate into a sense of we, a shared emotional space that feels secure and alive. Policing behavior often focuses on what should not happen, while connection focuses on what needs to be nourished. Rules may stop certain actions, but they do not create intimacy, desire, or meaning. Connection, however, creates a relational environment where betrayal feels out of place rather than tempting. When partners regularly experience closeness, appreciation, and mutual investment, the idea of risking that bond loses its appeal. This approach also shifts responsibility in a healthier way. Instead of one partner acting as the enforcer and the other as the potential offender, both become active participants in maintaining the relationship's vitality. They ask not only what must we avoid, but what do we need more of? More honesty, more playfulness, more emotional depth, more intentional time together. These questions strengthen the relationship rather than narrowing it. Importantly, nurturing connection does not mean ignoring boundaries or excusing harmful behavior. It means recognizing that boundaries are most effective when they are supported by emotional closeness. A strong connection makes boundaries feel natural rather than imposed. Partners protect each other not because they are watched, but because they feel seen, chosen, and emotionally significant. When a relationship becomes a place of refuge rather than restriction, loyalty emerges organically. The focus shifts from preventing loss to cultivating presence, from guarding against betrayal to deepening attachment. In this space, faithfulness is not something enforced from the outside, but something sustained by the richness, safety, and meaning found within the bond itself.